Ladies and gentlemen, my guest tonight is Freya Leach, and she's quite a dynamo, in case you hadn't noticed, and I think this should be a session that you'll enjoy. So I would like to begin, Freya, by asking you this question. Do you think the dividing line for young people is best understood as left versus right, or those who trust their feelings versus those who think through and are interested in the evidence and the arguments?
That's a great point. I think it's probably the latter. And I would also add, I think the dividing line is between those who have a sense of meaning beyond themselves and those who search for it in politics and in social issues. And I think that's pretty critical. There are a lot of young people and lots of my friends. We are a generation that lots of people haven't grown up going to church. They don't have a deep connection with their family. We're more atomized. We don't have a community connection. We're more likely to move around. And I think all of those things erode a sense of meaning that young people maybe used to have, but they certainly don't now. And then when you're facing such a lack of meaning, and how do you form an identity? And so then when things like climate change come along or progressive social issues, those things can act as a substitute for that meaning that we're all craving. And I think that's happened a lot. And in the face of that, it's sort of all reduced to emotions, because it doesn't make sense to define yourself in terms of climate change or your sexuality or your gender, yet people do. So it has to be driven by emotion. So yeah, I would say yes, the latter.
The great commentator Anne Hersey Ali, married to Neil Ferguson, many of you will know of her. She wrote that we're in danger of turning our democracy into an emocracy, where we feel everything and don't think anything through. But there's a sense in which I think people like me have been too quick to argue what I think are the facts anyway. In this day and age when facts seem to be only facts if you believe in them, and to mount the rational arguments and what have you. Whereas our political opponents, I think they've understood that in the end we all do have a moral sense. I remember a speaker once saying, don't forget, everyone has a strong moral sense. If you doubt that, go and have dinner with the mafia boss and take his silver and see what happens. We do. Now, the Labor Party in particular seems to be very good at beginning every pronouncement with a moral statement or a call to our feelings before they go on to the argument. Do you think we could learn from that?
Definitely. If you look at the language that Chris Minns uses here or Albo uses at a federal level, particularly Albo, and with things around the voice, it's all appealing to your emotions, but it's all appealing as well to these deeply held moral convictions. And, Labor talks about fairness. We want fairness. We want to right past wrongs. Those are not necessarily bad things, but the way they then apply that and the arguments that they then add on to that, that's what's bad. And it means that people just get so used to thinking in terms of emotions. When you try to offer facts, it's like, what? Like, we see this on social media all the time. It's not a fact-based argument. Even with things around issues like energy policy, it's all about emotions. Climate change has become a social issue. It's become a matter of equity, as they all love to talk about. And we've lost the ability to think critically about things and actually detach emotions, 100%.
Do you think one of the skills we lack then is to, if you like, broaden people's moral palette? What do I mean by that? If a person says to me over a dinner table conversation, this is always dangerous when you get onto climate, that it's the greatest moral challenge that we face and all the rest of it. Is there the opportunity to be faster and fleeter of foot in putting up an alternative moral dilemma? So, for example, one of my favourites, because I'm deeply invested in agriculture and agricultural research, is that staggeringly, over the last 50 years, we got to the point where we're now feeding 5 billion mouths a day every day than we used to do. It's a staggering performance. We're always talking the West down, but that's one of our great achievements because we've basically spearheaded all of that, our know-how, our export of compassion, if you like. But that's a moral dilemma because it's dependent on affordable energy, available and affordable energy and fertiliser. Put up an alternative moral dilemma and see if you can't get a broader debate going. Is that a thing that you think we ought to be better at?
The problem is, if you base your political strategy on pragmatism and managerialism, then you can't do that. And I think as Liberals, we've gotten into the habit of always, basically we've just forgotten the values that we actually stand for. And I think part of the reason we've done that is because we're actually right. We're right about how the economy works. We're right that small government is good, lower taxes are better. That's how you create economic growth. And we've become so reliant on the fact that we're right about a lot of this stuff that we've actually forgotten to explain the moral argument behind that. Why are lower taxes good? Why should we inspire people to be aspirational? Why should we protect individual freedoms and liberties? We've forgotten that part because we're so good at managing the economy. And it's what we always talk about, we're good economic managers. And that's so true. But we come up against a situation which we have now with young people where they go, okay, that might be true, but I'm being told that you only manage it for the interests of the boomers. And climate change is going to kill us all. And I can't pay my rent. And then what do you say to them, right? What is the argument against rent caps? Of course there's a good economic argument against it, but there's also this moral argument that we've totally forgotten because we're so good at actually being correct on policy.
I know exactly what you're saying, and I think it's a real dilemma, and we all need to get our minds around it. I did a conversation recently with Peter Costello, and we hammed it up beautifully. I mean, nothing like reinforcing one another's prejudices. It's one of life's most enjoyable activities. You and I should try it one day. Come to think of it, somebody just said that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
But he made, I thought it was brilliant. I said to him, we can't turn economics into a discussion about a sweet set of numbers. There doesn't was. And he came back with a brilliant retort, and he's very chuffed because it made it into the Australian Financial Review. He said, the best youth policy is deficit and debt reduction, so that our children don't have to pay taxes for the things that they're spending money on, as well as their parents and grandparents. Does that sort of note resonate? It's a different approach to completely to saying it's important to understand economics.
I think it does. But the challenge is, well, I guess I should say, if you frame it as fairness, like this is about intergenerational fairness, and it's unfair for us to burden the next generation because of our excessive spending and short-term political gains. But it's also challenging because I think there is a general lack of economic literacy among a lot of young people. A lot of them don't understand how the economy works. It sounds really bad to say, but...
You mean they went to school?
Yeah, well, that's right. They're not being taught the basic things, and they're not having these conversations with their parents or grandparents where that knowledge is sort of passed down. And unless you go look for it, the stuff you see on social media would have you believing the exact opposite of that. I mean, I've seen videos that say, oh, isn't it so terrible that the Labor budget delivered a surplus? That should be going towards more welfare. That's how they're thinking. That is genuinely the line that's out there. So even these basic economic truths that we know, young people actually quite literally don't. And that's why it's so important that we have young people and all people, including people like yourself, that are out there, that are actually setting the story straight and reconvicting a lot of those points. Because I think there's a sense that we've won the economic debate. People have conceded that, we are good at managing the economy, the Liberals are good, yes. But young people don't believe that. They actually do not. A lot of them are quite alarmingly attracted to socialism. It's really concerning.
You made a really important point, and the research backs it up, that traditionally people have drifted back to the centre as they've moved into their 20s, it was the 20s, got a job, thought about getting married, starting a family, a mortgage, and they drifted back to being interested in good economic policy and what's going to make a difference. Here's something you might not be aware of. The continental Europe is amazingly drifting back towards the right, but the Anglosphere is not. And as you mentioned, young people are drifting further and further left.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is tied up with a really vexed issue. I'm a boomer, so you fellow boomers, we've got a problem here. There's a lot of name calling over you boomers have got all the property. But put that aside for a moment, there is a problem, I believe. Being unable to purchase a house, being in a society where 60% of young people now say, and they're not idiots, let's not just say, come on, stop eating less smashed, maybe you do need to eat less, but it is a real issue. When I left school, and I know I'm grey and ancient, but some of you heard me quip the other day that I was standing in front of the mirror getting ready for bed, and I said to Julie, oh, darling, this is depressing. I don't feel any different on the inside, but look at this. Silver hair. That was the Razor Gang, by the way. It was Howard saying we're going to end the intergenerational theft and 5 of you are going to clean up the mess, and I was one of the 5. No, would you like to help? You will. But anyway, I said, everything's sagging and it's all sinking south. Quick, darling, say something. I need a bit of encouragement. She said, I've been thinking recently just how terrific your eyesight's remained. But just to delve into, there is a question, there's a point here. We know that delayed home ownership, 60% of young people say we'll never own a home unless we inherit. That sets up some pretty unhealthy family dynamics for a start.
Yeah.
But worse than that, this is astonishing. We are now in danger of delaying family formation and so interrupting it that we're going to be dependent upon guest workers. And people are worried about immigration rates at the moment. They'll never tell you, but a lot of it's being driven by the experts in Canberra who are fully aware that we're running out of our own people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I had 4 kids, and someone in the National Party said, you've obviously given up on signing them up, John, you're going to breed them instead. But but if you see the national parallel, we're not having enough kids for our own future. So this family, you must have, I just encourage young libs to think really long and hard about legitimate policy sort of parameters for addressing this problem. Any thoughts?
Super, super hard. I mean, I probably don't have all the answers.
Super.
Yeah. Well, no, it's very, very difficult. And I think as well, the other dynamic in all of that is there is a very... We recently did a podcast with Jacinta Price talking about The Voice, which will be released soon. And one of the questions I asked her was, should young people feel the level of guilt for our culture and our country's existence that they do? Because my generation, we actually feel guilty. There is a deep sense that our country is unjust, it is corrupted. There is the original sin of Australia, which was our treatment of Aboriginal people. And since then, it's all bad. And now, we're part of that system and it's really all terrible. And I think that same pessimism bleeds into things like climate change. There's a sense that, it's all doom and gloom and innovation can't get us out of this and there's no hope here. And then the breakdown of meaning and any sense of anything beyond ourselves. And so not only do young people feel as though financially they could never possibly afford to have a family, but actually, should I even have a family? Is it actually responsible of me to bring children into this broken world? And the fact that that's even a question that young people, that I've heard my friends talking about, celebrities, Meghan Markle and Harry saying that they'll only have 1 kid because it's irresponsible to bring multiple into the world. It's shocking. But that is genuinely how a lot of young people are thinking. So you've got the economic side of it, and I think simple answers are we need to build more houses for a start, and we need people to understand that they can own a home, and we need to take actions to get governments out of the way. But then the moral side of it is young people feel like maybe it's actually not right for me to have children in this world. And if you go back to Menzies' Forgotten People speech, he talks about 3 homes: the home material, the home human, and the home spiritual. And when those 3 homes come together, that is how you form a sober society that is healthy and functions well. Home material, 60-70% of young people believe they'll never be able to own their own home. Home human, they don't want to have children, they're not getting married. We're in this culture of serial monogamy where you have one partner every 3 years. And then home spiritual, well, there's nothing spiritual. Maybe it's like new agey, or we find our spiritual meaning in solving progressive social issues. But that is the extent of it. And so when you think about how those 3 homes, we've been dislocated from all 3 as a young generation. And I'm sure every generation has had their challenges, but this is the particular moment we're in right now. And I think that it's having pretty significant impacts. And that's why suicide is the leading cause of death for young people in our country.
I'd just like to pick up on something you said there, because I think my encapsulation of the importance and the profundity of what you've said is none of us can live long without hope. We need hope.
Yeah.
We need to believe there's a tomorrow and we have a place in it and an interest in it. And we need to believe in our neighbour so that we'll fight for them too. So I think my question to take this home would be, you are a hopeful person. I'm sure you're inspiring the rest of us to hope. Are you confident you can keep your hope alive through the ups and downs of life?
Well, I'm sure I've just made you all a bit more depressed, actually. But no, that's right. I am hopeful because I believe that the values that we stand for as a party are true and are real, and we can be free, and young people can be aspirational. And I think in terms of how I can stick at it through the ups and downs, well, it goes back to the conviction and the courage that you were talking about. If we believe that this is really true, and this is really what is going to make sure that the next generation of Australians, my peers, my friends, are flourishing human beings that have a faith in our nation and want to contribute rather than just take, well, then we need to stay at it. It's actually a responsibility because, and as you've talked about in podcasts, we actually need heroes. We need people that want and are willing to lead the charge. And I feel a very deep sense of responsibility to do everything that I can for my generation, because there are so many people out there that have been absolutely captured by the ideology of the left. They don't have any hope. They haven't heard our message. They don't understand that there is hope for them in a country where they can build a life for themselves, because they've been told that that's just not possible. And so for me, it's actually a sense of responsibility and duty to stick at it. And I think when you feel that sense of responsibility, things might happen, might be difficult, and there have been memes about me online, and You Sid Rants, this anonymous Facebook page where people can post anything they want. There's been borderline defamation, actually quite actual defamation on there, but it's all part of it. And you're probably saying something right when all the socialists hate you. So we just have to. It's not a luxury. Do I want to or do I not? It's actually a responsibility. And to all the young people in the room, it's a responsibility for all of us to go out and do the little bit we can. Because while technology has created a lot of challenges, it's also created a lot of opportunities. Never before would some random person like myself be able to reach 1 million young people. That's just unthinkable. But at this point in history, we can. So there is a path out, and we know the things we stand for are true. We know that there are these universal values and facts about human nature, and the stuff that Robert Menzies talked about still resonates with people today. It's just that a lot of young people haven't even heard it, or they've been captured by anti-liberal ideas. But we know that they're true, and we know that they work. And so it's a responsibility for us all to go out and actually make the case and stick at it even when it's hard.
Old fogies like me must recognise the importance of social media and how to use it. It is so, so important to the future. Jordan Peterson said to me a while ago, you'll never win a mainstream argument in the mainstream press anymore if you don't have a proper online presence and capacity to engage people with high quality content. I think that's important, and you can do it. Your results are fantastic. We are all challenged by Friendly Geordie's numbers, but hey, I've got 4 times the subscribers that Kevin Rudd's got. I've challenged Freya to maintain the hope, okay? It's my turn now to challenge you. You're all here, I assume, because you want to support what David and Menzies are doing with their Young Leaders program. I want to know that everyone in this room with the capacity to help, I don't like the word mentoring, it sounds kind of pompous, but be a sounding board, be a friend, be there when it all gets to you on social media, you young people, whatever, and say, well, you know, our version of being cancelled looked like this and it was horrible, so I can understand. That's important. But look, let's face it, the world needs resources as well, and you're going to need a lot of them, and we need to invest heavily in our country's future, which just happens to be you young people. So Freya, a big round of applause for you, and thank you for your time.